Hello and welcome to another episode of Forno and Form. My name's Nat Garofalo, I'm your host, and today we have a very special treat for you. We are making pizza. I'm surprised you guys haven't asked, hey, when's the pizza recipe coming? And well, without even asking, here you go. You've got yourself a nice little pizza recipe. So today, it's a very special recipe. I found this one after years and years of research. My family and I, we've been trying to kind of like narrow down our pizza recipe. My dad, and for those of you that may not know, he was a baker for 30 plus years, so he knows pretty much everything there is to know about baking, whether it be bread, pizza, etc. But we've always been trying to refine our recipes, whether it be bread or pizza, etc. Right? And I finally found a nice recipe for pizza, and what's cool about it is that it has a calculator for you, which I will link that calculator for you in the description. And additionally, it's a little bit different than your typical pizza recipe, where it doesn't really focus so much on the unit of measure or the weight that you're using for the ingredients. It focuses more so on the ratio of the ingredients, and that's included in the calculator as well. And I also include a link in the description to the area where I found the recipe as well. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into this essentially it's Neapolitan style. So you're gonna want to cook this in a very, very hot oven. Today you're gonna see it two ways. You're gonna see it in our oven, just so you can do it at home in an easy fashion. You'll also see it outside. I have an attachment for my Weber kettle. I'll be making it on that as well. So you'll see it a couple different ways today. But your basic ingredients today are, you've got some olive oil. This is just more so for brushing and keeping things moist. Some kosher salt. I recommend either kosher or sea salt. It's a better salt to work with in this instance, other than just regular table salt. Just regular tap water. And there is a unique item with this particular pizza recipe, whereas most dough recipes you'll see suggest using lukewarm or warm water. This one is unique in the sense that it suggests to use cold water, because with this particular recipe you want a slow rise from the dough, and by using warm water it would rise a little bit faster, whereas you're using cold water, it's going to prolong that rising period. All right, we've got some active dry yeast. It's hard to see in the bowl here, but it's there. If you have access to fresh yeast, obviously use that if you can. I do not, so this is just the dry yeast. Just a quick note about the yeast. The calculator the calculator is calibrated specifically for fresh yeast. So if you're using dry yeast like I am, you'll have to have that amount of the yeast. So if it says 1 gram, you're using half a gram, that kind of thing. And then we've got all-purpose flour. And just a quick note about the flour, because there's all different types of flours. This is just your basic all-purpose flour. You've got that, you've got bread flour, you've got 00, which is what this recipe is recommended for, but I didn't have access to 00. And again, just a note that the calculator is calibrated for 00. If you're using all-purpose or regular bread flour, you'll want to reduce the water ratio down to about 55 to 60%. But again, this is just regular all-purpose flour. And then I've got a hand mixer. I'm not a hand mixer, I've got an actual mixer. The recipe itself calls to do this by hand. If you want to, by all means. You'll see why I'm not doing it by hand very shortly. There is a kneading process that takes about 10 to 20 minutes, and I don't have 10 to 20 minutes to hang around and knead some dough for you. The ingredients are very simple. Like I said, the ratios and the calculator and everything will be down in the description, so don't worry about taking notes right now. For the time being, we're going to go ahead and get into the recipe, and we'll get some pizza cooked up here for you. So we're going to start with our water and our salt. We want to get that nice and incorporated. You want to make sure that the salt is completely dissolved in the water. And remember, what we're using here is cold water. Typically, like I said, for most baking dishes, whether it be pizza, bread, or anything that requires a leavening agent like yeast, it's most likely usually recommended to do it with warm or lukewarm water. This is a variant in that we're doing it with cold water to kind of slow down the rising process by design. All right, so that's nice and incorporated. You want to add that to your mixing bowl. And if you're not using a mixer like this, you're just using like a regular bowl and you're kneading with your hands, you can mix the water in that bowl, but I chose not to do it in here. Now the next step would be to add in the yeast, but where I found this recipe, I learned a really cool little fact that if we add this yeast directly into the saltwater mixture, it will damage the yeast to an extent. So in order to create a little bit of a buffer, what we're going to do here is we're going to take a handful of our flour and incorporate that in with the salt and the water, and that'll create a bit of a buffer for the yeast to prevent any damage for the yeast. So I'm going to whisk this in real quick. You're not looking to do anything crazy here. You just want to make sure that the flour, the water, and the salt are one homogeneous blend. All right, that will suffice. And then at this point, we want to add in our yeast. I probably should have picked a slightly bigger bowl, or a smaller bowl, excuse me, for my yeast to navigate a little bit easier. Okay, you want to incorporate that in. Okay, and then what's going to go in next is our flour, and this is always fun. So I'm going to use measuring cups because my bowl again is a little bit too big for the mixer, so it's going to be hard to navigate to get all of that in there without creating a mess. So I'm going to raise up my mixer here. I'm going to start this just on a light stir because we're not really kneading yet. That'll come in a little bit, and I apologize if you can't hear me over the mixer. So at this point, if you're not using the mixer, you just want to use a wooden spoon or your hands to just kind of incorporate the dough, the water, the salt, and the yeast. Initially, as you start off, it's going to be a little flaky. That's okay. That's to be expected. That's what you're looking for. Well, eventually, it'll start to come together and start to resemble dough a little bit more. So I'm going to kick this up a little bit. Before I bash my head on the cabinet, I'll close that guy. All right, so we're going to let that mix up. Eventually it's going to start to bind and come together. Once it does that, if you're not using the mixer, what you want to do is you want to kind of knead it in your mixing bowl a little bit to kind of make sure you get all of the flour and everything incorporated. Essentially what you're looking for is you want the kneading process in the bowl to kind of clean the sides of the bowl. That's the best way to think about it. All right, so at this point, we're at a point where I'd want to kick this up a little bit. Okay, so I'm at that point right now, since I'm using the mixer, where I'm watching and waiting for the dough to kind of come together and for the sides of the bowl to come clean. Eventually, I'll bring you guys closer so you can see what I'm talking about. And just with anything that requires dough or any sort of flour-based dish, if I could talk, that'd be fantastic. A recipe will typically call for a specific amount of flour, water, etc. You may find that you have to add a little bit more flour, a little bit more water, just depending upon how the flour and the water are behaving that particular day. I'm going to slow this guy down a little bit. So like if you're making this again outside of the mixer, you want to knead it in the bowl until the sides have come clean through the kneading process. It'll be interesting. I'll show you here in a minute. I'm going to add a teensy bit more water, not a whole lot. And just to give you guys a heads up with this particular recipe, I probably should have told you at the front. At home and for me here, but not in the video itself, this is going to be a bit of a marathon recipe for you. Outside of the actual mixing and everything that we're doing, the actual proof times, the initial proof is going to be about 2 hours. Once that proofs, you'll portion the dough out into its individual balls. From there, it's going to proof another 4 to 6 hours. So with this particular recipe, you need to allow time. This is not one of those ones where you're going to wake up in the morning and have this for lunch. This will be wake up in the morning and have it for dinner. Or if you want to make it the evening before, you can do that as well. The longer something proofs, it's not going to hurt it. Like if you were to set this aside for the 4 to 6 hour proof before you went to bed, okay, so it proofs until lunchtime. It's not going to hurt the dough. It's just going to add a little bit more of a stronger flavor to it. All right, perfect. So I'm going to try and bring you guys close here without destroying my phone and show you what we're looking at here in terms of the clean bowl. So you'll see the sides have pretty much come clean from the kneading process. That is what you're looking for in regards to if you're mixing with without a mixer. You're going to want the bowl that you're working with to become clean from the sides. From here, once you've done that, if you're working without a mixer, you want to remove it from your mixing bowl and then knead by hand, and you'll want to put it out either on your tabletop or a wood surface with a little bit of dusting of flour and work it on there for about 10 to 20 minutes. I am not going to do that because I'm a little lazy sometimes. Today I'm going to have it knead in the mixer here for the 10 to 20 minutes. And then while it's doing that, I'll prep some other things. But in the meantime, I'm going to get this guy fired up, and then we'll check back in once we're ready to put this guy aside to rest for about 2 hours. All right, welcome back. The dough has been kneading in the mixer for a little bit over 10 minutes right now, so I figure while that wraps up, I'll fill in some blanks for you with this particular recipe. You'll notice in the calculator that the measurements are in grams and milliliters is for the water. So if you need to, just find yourself a calculator on Google that will translate that for you. Obviously, for the grams, you'll need a food scale, which I happen to have. So if you don't have a food scale, what I'm going to try and do for you is have the measuring cup measurements for you in the description. But really, if you can, find a friend that's got a food scale, because this recipe is very dependent upon the weight of the ingredients. So try to stick to the process as much as possible. One other thing with this particular recipe is that you'll notice that it has a little bit more salt than your typical pizza recipe. That's on purpose. That's for the flavor first and foremost, but it'll also help kind of protect the dough from bad bacteria, since this is going to be a slower and longer rise process. So it is going to be a little bit of, it's going to have more salt, but it's not going to have a salty flavor to it. It's just going to have good flavor to it. And again, we've got some olive oil here. That's not really a main ingredient. It's just more so to keep things moist and keep things from drying out. This should be just about ready. For you, if you're not using a stand mixer, and I got the word right this time, to knead your dough, when it's ready to proof it, you'll want to take it out of the mixing bowl that you're using, form it into a ball like I'm about to do now, and then put it back into your original mixing bowl. So it's essentially a one-pot dish, so you're not messing up a whole bunch of stuff. So this should be just about done, so I'm going to shut this guy off. Lower my mixer here. That's one thing I really enjoy about this particular recipe, is that it's a pretty easy recipe in terms of what I'm using to actually get everything done. And you'll notice that the hook on here is fairly clean too. It's almost like if I was making pulled pork and the bone came out clean kind of thing. So that's kind of what you're looking for if you're using a stand mixer. If you're not using a stand mixer, what you're looking for is just a nice doughy, for lack of a better term, homogeneous, kind of like sticky texture from the dough. So here's this. I'm going to form it into a nice dough ball here on my wood cutting board. If you just were using your hands to knead this, you already have started on your wood cutting board or tabletop, so it's just a matter of finishing there. So you want to get this formed into a nice, compact, homogeneous bowl. ball, excuse me. And then just for a quick little note, this recipe, the ratios that are going to be in the description, is meant for to create four dough balls or 4 pizzas. Okay, so you see, this is our pizza ball, our little dough. This is going to go in the bowl there. Before I put that in there, though, I'm going to add in my olive oil just to make things. Make sure things don't stick, and then what you'll want to do this with your bowl as well, with your mixing bowl. And then you want to, if you have a brush, by all means, brush it in there. If you don't, you can use your hands. You're just going to get a little greasy. That's okay. Okay. This will add a little like surface flavor to the dough, but that's really not the point of this. It's just to keep everything moist while it rises. Okay. There's that. We're going to put our dough ball in there. And then we're going to brush the top a little bit too, to keep the top moist so it doesn't develop any sort of a crust. Again, this is what we're looking at before it goes in there. Put this guy in. Okay. I'm going to brush the top of the dough ball with some olive oil. Okay. Alrighty, now we're going to cover this with some plastic wrap, or if you have like a damp kitchen towel, like just dampen it up a little bit with some water. I prefer using the plastic wrap. We're going to cover this up, let it sit at room temperature for about 2 hours and rise. And then once it's done, we're going to come back. We're going to portion that out into 4 pizza balls, and then let it rise again for roughly another 4 to 6 hours. But I'm going to go ahead and get this guy covered up, and then I'll check right back in. Welcome back. Our dough has gone through its first proofing process, which I mentioned was 2 hours. It's been about 2 hours and change because I stopped for lunch. Hey, we all got to eat, right? So our dough has gone through its first proofing process. You'll see here in a bit that it is larger than it was when it went in. I'm going to pull this up to the camera for you guys so you can see it up close. Hopefully the angle isn't too bad. There we go, guys. I know you can't see all of it, but I'm going to take it out of the mixing bowl here in a minute so you'll be able to see it a little bit more up close. For this portion, you'll need a baking sheet or some kind of dish that's got high enough sides to allow the dough to rise some more. You'll also need some space because this is making 4 pizza dough balls, so you need to have enough space for them so they can expand. For this, you'll want to brush the pan with a little bit of olive oil again, just to keep things moist, and then we'll coat the top of it with some olive oil as well, and then we'll wrap it in some plastic wrap, and then it's going to proof for another 4 to 6 hours. Like I mentioned a little while ago, this is a bit of a marathon recipe, so you have to kind of buckle down and have some beers or some wine along the way and just enjoy your day. Obviously, you'll have a good 4 to 6 hour period where you can do some errands, some laundry, etc. So it's not a completely lost day, but it's not something where you're going to get up in the morning and be able to have your pizza for lunch. So I'm going to go ahead and get after it here and partition out the dough into 4 equal pieces, just so you can kind of see this guy up close. Nice quality dough ball right there. What I recommend, and if I can find my scale, there it is. I recommend using a food scale to partition out your dough balls, just to make sure everything is equally measured and the proper size. You can always eyeball it. I mean, it's not exact science. You're cooking for your family. You're not cooking for a restaurant, right? So, I mean, if one ends up being a little bit heavier than the other, no one's really gonna write a bad review of you on Yelp, excuse me, unless you have a beef with some of your family members. So this one, it's coming in at about 900 grams. So I'm gonna try and split it up 4 equal ways. It's gonna be a little tough with it being 900, but that's fine. Again, these are going to be smaller pizzas. If you want to divide them up so that they're a little bit bigger, you can do that too. It's totally up to you on that one. Sorry, I'm just looking here at my scale, trying to get things as even as possible. Some of them are a little bit bigger. All right, just trying to get them a little closer to each other here. Okay, so I've got my 4 dough balls portioned out. Normally I kind of get a little bit more precise with the measurements, but for the interest of the video, I'm just going to try and make this a little quick for you guys. And you just want to make this into a nice, smooth, and compact dough ball. And so we want to put this in our baking sheet, just a little bit of oil to drizzle, cover the bottom. And then we'll use our brush from before, get this nice and coated in there. All right. This is our first guy. And then, like I mentioned, these are going to take a good 4 to 6 hours to proof. And then you'll have to make sure to bake in time to preheat your oven. It's going to take a while with this particular recipe. I recommend doing this at a higher temperature. So whatever the highest temperature setting is on your oven, go with that. There isn't really a specific time to adhere to while it's actually baking. You're going to be going pretty much based off of appearance, and we'll get to that part once we actually have the pizzas in the oven. But let's say your max oven temp is 450. That's what you're going for. If it maxes out at 5, do that, because this is meant to be a high heat pizza dough. Okay. And there was a little bit of flour on that cutting board. It's really not going to hurt anything. It's just going to, work itself into the dough ball. That's all. Okay. And they're not all equal in size, but that's fine. It's really not going to impact anything. Okay. There we go. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get these guys brushed up with some olive oil, and then wrapped up with some plastic wrap so they can do the final level of proofing. In the meantime, if you guys want to go ahead and throw a comment down in the comment section, like what your favorite toppings are on your pizzas, by all means do that. Or if you've actually made the recipe, let me know what you think. But I'm going to go ahead and get these guys oiled up, and then we'll cover them up with some plastic wrap, and then we'll be right back. Welcome back. Our dough has about 10 minutes left before it's done proofing for the second time, but I decided to give you guys a bonus real quick before we get into the dough and the rest of the pizza recipe. So I do have my coals heating up outside. I'm a little sooty at the moment, and the oven is just got done preheating. We have it at 550. Like I said, you want as high of a temperature as your oven can go to. If it can go to 550, perfect. If the highest it can go to is 450, you'll have to make that work. And again, like I said, I've got coals going outside, so I'm a little sweaty and I'm a little sooty from the charcoal. But let's get into that bonus. Any pizza is going to need some sort of sauce on it, so figure instead of having you guys use a jarred sauce or something to that effect, I'll give you our family's pizza sauce recipe. It's very simple. 1 can of crushed tomatoes, roughly half a cup, a little bit extra of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. Garlic powder would be about a teaspoon. Black pepper, about another teaspoon. Kosher salt, about 2 teaspoons of kosher salt at the very, very most. And then it's going to be pretty heavy on the oregano, about 2 tablespoons of oregano, and then about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now the process here is kind of important. You want to add in your dry ingredients and your tomatoes first, mix those up, get everything nice and incorporated, and then bring the oil into the mixture, because then if you do the oil before the mixing, it's going to make it weird. It's not going to settle properly. So you want to do your tomatoes and your dry ingredients first, mix, and then add in your olive oil. So we'll go ahead and get that going here. And this is a non-cooked sauce. The cooking that it's going to do is going to be in the actual oven with the pizza, so you don't have to worry about that. Again, here's our half a cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. And then the crushed tomatoes, it was one 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. All right, little garlic powder. We opt for the garlic powder in this instance instead of freshly chopped garlic, just because we don't want the chunks of garlic in the sauce. Some black pepper. And again, like I've mentioned in other videos, the majority of my seasoning tends to be eyeballed, so I do apologize for that. I know not everybody eyeballs their ingredients and things like that, but that's just kind of how we cook in our house. And again, the heavy ingredient here is going to be the oregano. And some salt. Okay. And you don't want to go too salty, because with this particular pizza dough recipe, the dough has a little bit more salt than normal. I'm going to adjust the camera here a little bit. There we go, folks. All right, thank you, bear with me. It's a one-man crew, so sorry about that. So like I was saying, as far as the salt, we don't want to go too salty, because the dough has a little bit more salt than your traditional pizza dough. So you want to compensate with that in the actual sauce and not make it too salty. So like I said, at this point, we're going to mix up our dry ingredients. You're not looking to do anything crazy. Just get everything nice and incorporated. You can use a spoon, you can use a fork. I'm opting to use a whisk just so I can get everything nice and incorporated. It takes a bit to get the cheese under the surface, but once you got that, it should be easy to mix. See, we're just mixing away here. Okay. Now it already smells fantastic from the oregano and everything. So we're gonna add our olive oil in, and then we're gonna go ahead and incorporate that. And then the sauce, you can make this, when you first do your first proofing, and just set it in the fridge and let it kind of marinate for the day, or you can do it right before you're about to make the pizzas like we're doing right now. So it works either way. So I'm going to go ahead and finish mixing this up, and by the time I'm done with that, it'll be time to stretch out our pizza dough, and then we'll show you that part, and then we'll show you how I make them on the grill, the attachment that I have, and then we'll make them in the oven as well. Now, I should have mentioned at the beginning of the video, there are a couple pieces of equipment that I recommend for this particular type of pizza dough. First and foremost, a pizza stone. Specifically for your oven. It creates just it's a better flavor. It's the best way to put it. It's a little bit more of an authentic pizza style. And then if you have a pizza peel, that's going to save you all kinds of hassle. So again, pizza stone and a pizza peel is ideal here for you, okay? So I'm going to finish mixing this up, and then we'll be right back when we stretch out our dough. All right, welcome back. We're here outside in the backyard. This is the infamous Garofalo garden. We are ready to stretch our pizza dough and put our pizzas together before they end up going inside the Weber kettle with the attachment. This is the part of the process that typically my dad does. He's the expert when it comes to stretching dough, whether it be pizza or bread or what have you. So I'm going to do my best, and hey, we're all novices at some point, so you're going to see me kind of struggle when it comes to stretching the pizza dough. But you know what? Once it goes in the oven or in the kettle, it doesn't really matter. So we've got our dough that's been rising all day right here. We're keeping it simple today in terms of the recipe. We were just doing cheese and pepperoni. Obviously, this episode was never really about the pizza itself. It's about the dough specifically, giving you a good base structure recipe for pizza dough. Perhaps down the road, we'll do some more episodes that focus specifically on the toppings and combinations and things like that. But the primary focus of today was going to be just for the base recipe for the dough. So what you'll want to start with, so I've got two pizza peels. You may or may not be able to see both of them here. I've got a wood one. This is the one I'm going to use to put the pizza on the pizza stone. And then I've got a steel one here, which is what I'm going to use to take it off. And then these guys will help me turn it while it's in the oven. So as always, you want to start with some flour and dust up your pizza peel so nothing sticks. There are a couple of schools of thought of this. You can either do this with cornmeal or flour, either works. It just creates some friction on the pizza peel so nothing sticks. Additionally, you can start the stretching on a different surface if you like. For me, I just like to stretch it on the peel to begin with. I don't like to handle the dough too much. All right, so here's our first dough. Now these are going to be smaller pizzas, probably about a medium, if not a little bit smaller. And you just want to start stretching this guy out very gently. You don't want to overwork it. Just give it a nice little stretch, let gravity be your friend here a little bit. And this is actually a really good consistency. And then once it's kind of been stretched out by its own weight, you want to start to kind of push out from the edges. I should have gotten my dad on camera for this one because like I said, he's the expert when it comes to stretching dough. And then you want to make sure before you get ready to put on your toppings that it's nice and loose and not sticking to the board. Otherwise, you're going to have a heck of a time getting it in the actual oven. Okay. So I will apologize because you're probably, as this video goes on, you're going to see me start to sweat a bit. It got humid as the day went on, so I thought I picked a good day to do this, but apparently Chicago weather had other plans. Okay. All right, that's nice and stretched. I'm going to get some more dough on there, on the peel, just so it doesn't stick. Now, if you've got the skills to get this guy perfectly round, by all means, do what you can. I do not. My dad does, though. But I'm working on it. Okay. Then you want to put your sauce on. You don't want to put too much because you want this thing still to be able to slide around on the board so you can get it in the oven. So, nice little ladle full of sauce. And just a quick note, the kettle pizza here gets pretty hot. All right, I like to put my cheese down first when I'm working with pepperoni or any kind of meat. I like the meat on the surface just so it can get nice and crispy. Okay. That's the beauty about pizza. It's kind of like painting. It's like art a little bit. It doesn't really matter that the dough itself has some rough edges and it's not a perfect circle. All right, now we have our pepperoni. I just grabbed this pepperoni at Target today because I realized I didn't have any. But if you prefer a specific type of pepperoni, by all means. And like I said, this isn't designed to be a toppings focused video. It's more so focused on the dough, like I mentioned before. All right, so we've got our pizza constructed. I'm going to slide this into the oven, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera so you can kind of see what the oven's doing here a bit. All right. Okay. Now this isn't going to take too long. You can see it in the oven there. You can see the flames on the side. This is reading on the thermometer on the surface about 900 degrees. So it's a pretty hot oven, so it's not going to take too long for this to cook up. So I have to keep an eye on this. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. We'll check back in once I take it out so you guys can see a picture of that. And then I'll finish up one more outside, and then we'll take you guys inside so you can see it in a normal oven, which is probably what you have at home. But again, this is the kettle pizza attachment. It's a standard 22.5-inch Weber kettle, and then the attachment is sold by a company called Kettle Pizza. You can find them on Amazon. They have their own website as well. I'll link that in the description. And then it's a very easy setup to put together, and it works fairly well. But like I said, I have to keep an eye on this guy because it's going to get done fast and it could burn real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and get to work on this, and then I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Our pizza's only been in there for about 5 minutes. We're ready to take this guy out. I got my exit pizza peel ready to go. All right. And here, whoo, that was close. Here's what we're looking at for our pizza out of the kettle pizza on my Weber 22.5-inch kettle. I'm going to put this guy on our cutting board so you can kind of see it in a little bit more of a safe position because the The pizza peel that I have has been through some battles, so it's a little loose. All right. Here's what we're looking at out of the kettle pizza. Smells fantastic. Got some nice leoparding on the underside. You can see there, that's what you're looking for in a Neapolitan style pizza. I'm gonna go ahead and let this guy rest. I'm gonna get the other pizza stretched out for the grill here, and then we'll catch up with you guys inside when we're putting the pizzas in a regular oven. Welcome back, and I've got a fully functional sweat ring around my collar. It is hot outside, very humid today in Chicago. It's even equally as hot here inside as I've got the oven kicked up to 550 degrees. Where we last left you, we just took our pizza out of the grill outside and then cooked the second one. There was a little bit of a mishap on the second one when I went to go put it in the pizza oven outside. Kind of folded up on itself, but hey, it was still salvageable. It's still here on the board. Right now we're gonna go ahead and stretch up the remaining two dough balls for our pizza, and we're gonna show you how to do it inside. The process doesn't change. All it really changes is the tool that we're using. We're using a regular conventional oven versus a Weber kettle with the attachment for a pizza oven. So again, same basic process. You might be able to see here a little bit more than you did outside. We're just gonna let gravity do some of the initial work for us, but we don't want it to tear. So when you start to see the center start to get thinned out, that's when you want to lay it on your peel. Or if you're working on a board, that's fine too. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, two pieces of equipment that are essential for you to be able to do this virtually hassle-free are a pizza peel and pizza stone. The pizza stone is going to create some very good flavor for you on the underside of the pizza. It'll create that leoparding that you hear a lot of folks talk about in reference to quality pizza. All right, and the pizza peel makes it very easy to put the pizza in and out of the oven. Okay. This one is going to be just cheese to start, because that's what my dad prefers. And that was the second one that I put on the kettle, but I kind of ruined that one. So I want to make sure that he gets a good pizza. All right, there's our sauce. Ladle that on there. Like I said, you don't want the sauce or any of your ingredients to be in excess, because this is going to weigh down your pizza and make it harder to get it in the oven. All right. So it is a delicate balance with the ingredients, because you want the flavor there, but you also need to be able to work with your dough. And as I'm adding ingredients, whether in this case it's just the sauce and the cheese, but if I was adding more stuff like pepperoni or sausage or green peppers, etc., I would do a quick little shake after each layer just to make sure the pizza does have the capability of actually moving and sliding around. Otherwise, I won't be able to get it into the oven. So we're good there. I'm going to pop this guy in here. Okay. And remember, the oven is set at 550 degrees. That is the hottest setting for this particular oven. So whatever the hottest setting is for your oven, set it at that. This should take about 10-15 minutes or so. Not too long considering the high temperatures. I'm going to apply a similar method to what I did outside and turn it occasionally just so that the heat is evened out on the pizza. So we're going to let this guy cook, and then we'll check back in just as I'm taking it out. All right, welcome back. We're ready to take this guy out of the oven. All right, that's looking nice. All right, I'm going to try and do this as delicately as possible, because we saw how... There we go, guys. Ooh, very nice. I'm going to get it on the board so it's easier for you guys to see, and less likely that I'm going to drop it. The handle on this peel is not the greatest. I need to get myself a new one, or tighten it in one way or the other. Hopefully it can be fixed. All right, should be able to see this a little bit better on here. There we go, nice cheese pizza out of the oven. I'll try and get it so you can see the leoparding under here. Kind of tough, but I'll try and do this without burning myself and without spilling the pizza. There you go, guys. Very nice. We're gonna let that guy cool off. I've got the last one ready to go, but before I throw that in the oven, I just want to go back over some of the things here with you guys and let you know what we covered today. It's been a long day. I started working on this at about 10:45 this morning. It is probably like 7:15 right now, so it's been a long day. Like I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a marathon cook for you, so be sure you're ready for it. This was a basic Neapolitan pizza dough recipe. Like I said earlier, it works based off of percentages. And as far as measuring the units for the ingredients, it's going to be done in weight primarily. And then the liquid is done in milliliters. Don't worry about all the calculations and all that stuff. The ingredients and everything's going to be down in the description, along with a link to a calculator for the ratios, as well as a link to where I discovered this recipe, and my family absolutely loves it. Obviously, we've thrown our little twist on it and how we like it, so there's that. Additionally, today we went over a pizza sauce recipe, so that'll be down in the description as well. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode, focusing specifically on the pizza dough and the pizza sauce. In future episodes, we'll focus primarily on the combinations of the toppings that go on top. And then we finished it off in the oven at the highest temperature possible, as well as outside as a bit of a special twist for you. We threw it on the Weber kettle with the kettle pizza attachment for a nice little wood-fired approach to it. So again, hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. Hopefully you had the opportunity to try this recipe. As always, the ingredients, the process, everything you need to get this done is going to be down in the description section. So please don't forget to give us a like, subscribe, and share the video. And of course, always report back with your comments to see if, I want to see if you guys made this, what twists or amendments you made to it, what toppings you put on it. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And we hopefully you guys will join us on our next episode of Forno and Form for whatever recipe comes your way. Thank you very much. Have a great day.